Lionel, is that you?
There, I think I got it. Kelly?
Yes, Lionel.
You're here.
I know. Isn't that something?
That is cool. I'm so glad that you're here. I got big news today.
You got big news.
Yeah, I started the day out. I literally woke up this morning and said to myself, what's the one thing I could do that would make Daniel feel fulfilled by the end of the day? Like what
every other day. Start to a day.
Yeah, like what could I do that would make Daniel feel better about my impact on the world? And I thought, and I rubbed my chin for a little bit, and I thought, and then I went, you know what? I'll go get physical therapy.
Ooh.
So my son, who apparently Daniel had been talking to at great length, started
going behind your back. Oh,
yeah,
no.
Yeah. He went behind him and my son. I guess I'm assuming that him and my son had this long conversation about me having physical therapy because of my hip operation. Because my son started in on me about the same time Daniel did, and he
just
said,
"Great minds think alike." That's it.
Yeah. And my son had busted his wrist on his snowmobile. There was numerous times I said, "Don't you think that's a little high to jump off of that?" No, it's okay. Don't you think that's a little high to jump off of that? No, it's okay. Anyways, one day he jumped off of that and broke his wrist.
Wow.
And it was quite painful. It appeared to be quite painful anyways. So then, long story short, he went to this physical therapist to help with his wrist healing. And he said, she's great. Dad, you'll love her because she could handle me so she can handle you. Because and you'll really like her and blah, blah, blah. And I went, yeah, I don't do physical therapy. I don't need somebody to tell me that if I move my leg a foot to the left or to the right, swing my leg around, that's going to improve my overall. And he said, Dad, I'm telling you got to go see this woman. And then it started, and then finally he made the appointment. So I made an appointment. And I'm like, ugh.
He's a good son.
Yeah. So I went to see her, and he was right. She was really cool.
Wow.
She was like not annoying at all. The only problem I ran into was after the last 11 years of multiple hospital visits, I'm sick and tired of filling out paperwork.
Oh, isn't that bad?
Oh, my God.
That's fair.
And so I get in there, and they're all very pleasant. And the lady says, did you bring your paperwork? And I'm like, no. What paperwork? Well, I mailed it. We emailed your paperwork. And I went, what paperwork? Well, anyway, turned out they had emailed it to my business.
Oh.
And
yeah, you could have had Barb.
That's what I would have. When I got back, I said, did you get an email? Blah, blah, blah. But anyway, she said, okay, well, here you can do it here. And hands me a clipboard with like 5 or 6 sheets of stuff. And it was, okay, your name, address, phone number, emergency contact, yada, yada, yada. So I placated them and I filled out those. I got down to, emergency contact, blah, blah, blah. And then you flip over the page and it's always the same questions.
Mm-hmm.
It's always the same questions. Have you, in the last 5 years, had an operation? Have you ever tripped on the sidewalk? Have you ever gone down to the local gas bar and not filled your tank up completely? It's all that same stuff. So I stand up and I say, I'm not filling any more of this out.
Yeah. You should have just put a note on it, say, go to Princess Margaret Hospital.
Yeah, exactly. So I say to this woman at the front desk, I'm not filling any more of this out. Why not? It's a long story. I'll leave if you want, but I'm not filling this out. She says, well, let me talk to the lady, the physical therapist. And apparently this is the lady that owns this particular physical therapy place. So she comes out And she says, "You don't want to fill out your paperwork?" I said, "No." And she says, "Well, can you at least sign where it says you consent, blah, blah, blah?" I said, "Sure." I signed my name. I'll sign my name. And I go back in, and she says, "Why don't you want to fill out paperwork?" I said, "It's a long story." She says, "Well, appease me." So I tell her the story, and she goes, "Well, no wonder you don't want to fill out paperwork." And I thought, well, this might work out okay.
Yeah, jeez.
And it didn't even bother me when she was saying, "Swing your leg this way and swing your leg." Actually, she was really good. Actually, Daniel, I left there feeling quite pleased. I made another appointment. I was like, wow, I can't hardly wait to tell Daniel.
Excellent. I'm happy for you.
Yeah, really.
I had to do physical therapy for my shoulder today, and I agree. I find it annoying, but man, does it ever help. So I'm glad.
So when you were swinging your leg around, were they playing the hokey pokey?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I said. Then your 2 test steps left, and then you do the hokey pokey. Exactly.
Oh, God.
But she said because I was starting to think I'm not making any progress here. But then she did all her stuff, and she said, "Yeah, you're about right on schedule."
Good. Just keep moving. That's it.
Yeah, so that's it. Anyways, all right. So tonight we're going to talk to, remember a few weeks ago we talked to Riley Triggs, that guy from Texas, all the way down in the Lone Star State.
I do.
Nothing.
I don't remember that one. I do. I wasn't here.
I listened to it though. It was good.
I did too. It was.
It was a good podcast. Quality podcast.
And I thought we should talk to him again about the NMRA and how they're making out with their new logo. But then I thought we should have somebody east of the Mississippi, so we don't just get a Western view from the NMRA. We get an Eastern and Western view. So then
people on social media have been complaining that the NMRA has a West Coast bias. So
really.
No.
There's more
but
people
they'll find a way to complain, though, Lionel.
Yeah, that's true.
Derek's just making stuff up.
Yeah, come on. So then I called John Doehring, and I said, John, I urgently need your assistance because we're going to have Riley on again, and I don't want it to be just the Lone Star State, because Riley comes in riding his horse and roping a calf and, yeehaw, wearing his cowboy hat. So, okay, Riley and John, come on into the studio.
Howdy, y'all.
Yeehaw. Yeehaw.
That y'all was the first sign the last time, right? From the South, right?
So, somehow you might not remember, but even though I live in the East Coast, I'm actually from Texas myself, too. So
we're sneaky that way.
Well, of course we knew that.
Yeah, we knew that. We just didn't want to bring it up.
Our research team let us know.
Yeah, we knew all about that.
We're a crack team.
We're on the NMRA. I wanted to talk about the new vision, and where on the NMRA website do you see something about the vision? Because that's important. That's what we got to talk about tonight. Did anybody know that? Because I saw it last time in, like, what's the thing that comes out on the you guys email everybody, the bulletin or something, or what's it called?
Yeah, it's called the e-bulletin. Yeah. So there's a link in there.
Is there?
And I think there is.
Okay. Anyways, I don't have the e-bulletin anymore because I read it and deleted it.
Go to the website. They'll have a copy of the e-bulletin.
Okay, where do I go? Okay, I'm on the website now, and I'm on I cache. What do you do? What's it called, Derek, when you get rid of your old things?
You have to clear your cache.
Yeah, I cleared my cache, and now I've got the new NMRA website up with the new branding. So where do I go to see, like, the e-bulletin or something like that, so I can see this vision thing?
I can't remember. I'm doing it.
Oh, wow. And there's thinking. There's no Marcus isn't thinking because he's been working all day.
Right. Yeah, he's been chasing inflatable polar bears away.
Right.
I will say I was Googling it before the show started, and I found I Googled NMRA strategic plan.
You got to sign in. Sign in.
Well, I'm not a member, so that's part
of
the
problem. Yeah, he's talking to me.
Sorry. But I did find the 2014 strategic plan.
I'm gonna sign in.
Let's see.
Because you're a member, you can do that.
So that would be my first question. Why isn't the vision somewhere available to the public? Anybody? Riley? John?
Chirp.
Hey,
I'm
Lionel,
checking right now to make sure that that's the case.
I bet if it's not, it will be.
I did look for it earlier today to see if it was up, and I just think it just isn't yet.
I don't know. If you look up bulletin, it comes out as it's the e-bulletin I'm looking for, right?
Yes.
Don't push NMRA bulletin because you'll get a page from the magazine.
All right, man. I have a really long account number.
Yeah, you can get it if you're a member. If you're,
one of my numbers is the same as Eddie Shack of the Toronto Maple Leafs. All right.
And I do believe the vision and the work plan for 2026 are both on the member side.
Yeah, we're on the member side. I got it right here.
I'm working on it. I'm putting in my email address because I already put it in the wrong place.
It's just like filling out more paperwork, Lionel.
Yeah, really.
Exactly. It's filling out paperwork.
I sense a theme in your life.
That is a theme in my life, filling out paperwork, and I hate filling out paperwork. I have become lazier. I have become lazier than I was in high school. And that's saying something. That's going a stretch. I'm in. Hot diggity dog. Look at that. So we know that the website works perfectly well.
There you go.
NMRA's Vision 2035. Full speed ahead to our centennial. Oh, is it the centennial is 2035?
Yes. Yeah. We just celebrated the 90th anniversary this year. So plus 10 years is approximately 2035.
Oh, okay. 100th. Well, that'd be cool. And
isn't that amazing?
It is. It actually is when you think about it. The hobby is that old. And I've found pictures on, what's that thing called where we find pictures? Derek or Marcus or Daniel or anybody? You know, where you find pictures of really
the internet?
No, it's called Spoke. It's called
Shorpy.
What is it?
Shorpy. SHORPY.com.
Yes, I found a picture on there from somebody operating their model railroad in 1925 or something. Yeah. But the actual NMRA started in Milwaukee in 1935. Correct?
Correct.
All right. So, John, which one of you guys is the visionist?
Oh, I think it's a team sport. Yeah, I can start at the background because I think one of you did mention that there was a vision strategic plan kind of effort a number of years ago, 2015, 10 years ago. And that was done, I think, by a core group of people. I don't know the whole history, but kind of the long and short of it was something got put together primarily at National. There wasn't a lot of engagement of other people. It kind of got rolled out and it didn't go anywhere because I don't think anybody really felt like they were part of it. So when I got on the board in 2021, I came with two kind of ideas or projects that I wanted to pursue. And one of them was to create a new vision and strategic plan for the organization, because that's what I do in my professional life. So that's kind of how I think. That seems to me to be sort of something you need to do foundationally if you're trying to change and evolve an organization. So I guess in that sense, I sort of maybe got the ball rolling. But it has been a pretty big kind of team sport involving all of the directors, many of the department managers, and other people on the executive side like Riley. Eventually, all of the region presidents got involved, several of the division level people. So lots of people got involved. We've been in close communication with lots of key people in the outside of the organization, like the magazines and the manufacturers. And then along the way, too, we did a survey of membership and got about 3,000 responses. So a lot of fingers went into the pie. But nominally, I've been the one that's kind of been trying to keep it together until probably about the middle of this summer. And then Gordy really pushed hard to get to where we are right now. So.
And have you guys had some sort of response to this yet? Or is this like so brand new that, I mean, we've talked about the vision before.
Right. I think it's unlike the logo, which has been rolled out and kind of lends itself to a quick feedback, right? The vision is, even in its summary form, is 6 or 7 pages long. And we've gotten a little bit of feedback because one of the directors, Lee Calkins, has posted several of the pages on the community Facebook page. And so that's generated a little bit of feedback. But it takes a little bit more work to dig into that and think about it and provide feedback. So as far as just kind of general community feedback, I don't think we have a lot yet. But like I said, we got quite a bit of feedback along the way of putting it together.
It seems like there's a lot of real enthusiasm with the executive or the board or whatever it is to change the not change the organization, but push the organization forward and modernize it. Is that a word? That's a word. Modernize. Is that the right word?
I think that's a good word. Because the word modernization goes to a couple of different things, I think. One is just the modernization of the operations, right? So think about the kind of the processes and systems we use, the computers and the databases, and then there's sort of modernization of the things you can see, like the digital magazine was a part of that. But I think the other side of that, or the other dimension of modernization, is kind of like relevant to the modern times. So I do think it's a good word. Another word that I would use is sustainability or sustainable, right? We're trying to very much think about, what does this whole thing need to look like so that it's got a good chance of making it another 100 years, into the second 100 years. And that really leads to, rethinking lots and lots of things, which have been so rooted in where we came from rather than where we're going to.
Yeah, like I feel like I've learned a lot this year, and I was as guilty as anyone for pointing out flaws. Like one of the things I hate with employees, and I've pounded into my son's head, is don't just point out flaws without having some sort of solution, because anybody can point out flaws.
Right.
And I feel like I was part of that. I feel like I was doing that as well, and I'm glad that I had a wake up call, and that that's of no help. It's because regardless, I still stick to what I say. I'll be the last guy. I'll be the guy turning out the lights for the NMRA. I'll never leave. I don't care. I'll never leave, because it's been a part of my life since I was 5.
Right.
So it's like, it's really exciting to see what you guys seem to have done in the last little while. I mean, Riley, like you guys had that what was like a company that looks into what did they do like exactly?
You're talking about our branding firm?
Yeah.
They actually took a crash course in model railroading. And did research, from kind of from a real objective viewpoint, coming in cold to the entire hobby to begin with, much less the organization. And so they had their first immersion experience at Amherst of this year, which, as you know, is just an explosion of model railroading. There's over 20,000 people there. There's vendors everywhere. There's manufacturers. The hobby press is there. You guys are there. Like it's a really great place to see a wide cross section of what the hobby is on that particular day to so many different people. And so they took that opportunity that weekend of going around just experiencing the place, which, was so overwhelming to me. The first year I went, I couldn't buy a thing because I was so overwhelmed. And so people coming into the hobby, not knowing about this at all, having that to be a first experience, you can just imagine what they were soaking in and, drinking from a fire hose. So they went around, experienced that, but then they also talked to a wide cross section of people. They talked to board members. They talked to you guys. They talked to members of the NMRA. They talked to non-members of the NMRA. They talked to vendors, manufacturers, the hobby press that was there, YouTubers, influencers, just, everybody that we could get our hands on to provide a different perspective about what the NMRA, meant to them, what they thought, the NMRA was about, and where they'd like to see it go. And so they compiled this research document that is something like 248 pages long. that goes into kind of categorizing the responses, looking at how trends are in the comments, what the different viewpoints are. And then they also, back home, they got on the Google machine and they looked for manufacturers' websites, for individual like blog posts, forums, anything to kind of get a sense of visually what model railroading was and how it was presenting itself currently out there in the world. So they did an analysis of the different colors, for instance, that are used in logos, in branding, what they were associated with, whether it was manufacturers. They looked at our logos that our divisions and regions use, which there's a couple hundred of those out there. Analyzed the colors and the style and everything like that, and really got an interesting, objective, third-party view of what the hobby looks like, what it sounds like, and what people are thinking about in the hobby right now. So it's a fascinating document in and of itself. But they did that so that they would understand how an identity and a brand needs to operate, and how it fits in with the current landscape, and how it can push that landscape forward, according to things that they have learned and they're piecing together and making connections on. So really fascinating document. I don't recommend reading it from front to back, but I would peruse through it and go, oh, that's interesting, and have some fun with it that way.
Is there any place to see it for a member to see it?
Yes, that is also on the website.
Okay.
If you go to the NMRA website and you look for promotional materials.
Okay. I should sign in. Oh, there it is. Rebranding 2025 rebranding. Documented here. So you just go to promo materials and boom, there it is.
There you go. And we've had a lot of people talk about it as well. People have sought it out, read it, and have provided feedback on that.
Was somebody going to say something?
I was just going to say I appreciate how transparent you guys have been.
Yeah, Derek, I thought for sure you were going to ask them if they had talked to White Rose Hobbies.
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, I bet they did.
They're on the partnership program too.
Are they?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nice segue, Kelly.
Mm.
Man, I've been waiting for you to wake up for years.
Tonight's the night.
Yep.
Tonight's the night. Yeah. This is.
I'm eating Halloween candy, so that's probably why.
There you go. You're having a.
She's all sugared up.
Yeah, you're all sugared up. So, and at White Rose Hobbies, you can get snacks too.
Yeah.
You can load up on Jelly Bellies. So,
hey, Lionel?
Yes.
John, there's a connection here I think we can make between the branding identity effort and the vision effort, which were two different things for a while.
Okay, well, hang on a minute. We still have to plug our sponsor.
Okay.
Give me two more seconds to plug my sponsor.
Can't you tell we're good at this?
Yeah,
really.
I know.
You would think after 11 years of this, we would be better.
Yeah, I know. That's like what kills me. It's like people expect, well, this will be good. No, it's not. Anyways, our sponsor for all of our free podcasts, which this is a free podcast. If you're listening to this, you're listening to our Monday podcast, and they're free for the public to consume. And they are all sponsored by White Rose Hobbies right there in downtown New York, Pennsylvania at 4401 West Market Street. And Kelly, what's their phone number?
I have no idea. I've never called them. I always go on the internet and just order.
Yeah, exactly. WhiteRoseHobbies.com. I was having we were having that argument. Well, not argument, discussion at the office because we have like about 4 bus bench signs. And my wife, who is like very hip to the new world, is like, why do we have the phone number on our bus bench signs? And I said, I guess, I don't know. She said, can you imagine any teenager that's out with their dad, doing driving and learning how to drive, Dad, jot down that number so we can call that driving school. She said, no, nobody's writing down phone numbers anymore. It's all whiterosehobbies.com. Boom. Yeah. That's where you go.
If you need the phone number, it'll be right there.
That's true enough. Wow. Come on. Is this really, Kelly? All right, I cut two people off. Derek, I cut you off first. So you were starting to say something.
I just had a round of applause for the NMRA for being so transparent that even as a non-member, I can see not only the vision statement, but also the full due diligence package. And unlike Riley's suggestion, I'm on page 23, and I just saw something that you said in there. So making my way through it, and thanks for being so transparent with this, guys.
All right, cool. And then, John, you were going to say something.
Yeah, the point I was going to make is that you can think about, so if you hired a graphic designer, said, I want a new logo, and you hired a graphic designer, you might have a quick conversation with them. But basically, they're going to draw you a picture. That's not what we did. We hired a branding expert. And the first thing those people said was, tell us about these other things. Tell us about your vision. Tell us about your mission. Why are you here? What are you trying to do? What do you want to be when you grow up? All those kinds of things. And all of those things are what we've been working on for several years now, and trying to build consensus around that. So these two things are not so separate. They're quite integrated. And so they're kind of all coming out at the same time. But I guess I just wanted to make that point that these people from the photo branding agency also played a role in helping us to crystallize our vision, because it was sort of turned into a back and forth or ongoing conversation. So it does kind of knit together, but they are sort of different dimensions of the project.
And so was there like a couple of members on the board that kind of that oversaw this happening? Because it was a fairly long process.
Well, yeah. I mean, there was I guess, Riley, you could probably speak to this more, right? There's a branding team that's been meeting every 2 weeks, or recently every week, for several months now. And it includes Riley and I are both there, board members, executive team people, some
Gordy's there.
Gordy's involved in that. So
Gordy's involved in everything.
Yes.
Gordy's involved in everything.
It's true.
I think he even stopped by the hospital when I was having my hip operation and offered up some advice. So how's it been accepted there, Riley? Is everybody just all smiles and giggles and say, "Hey, I can't wait to implement this in my division"?
Well, it has been a mixed bag, as you would expect on any sort of rebranding effort. But overall, I have actually been shocked at how well it's been received.
Mm-hmm.
When it was revealed at TrainFest in November, the people in person, the vendors, again, the hobby press was there, the manufacturers all had very positive excitement in their responses. So that was really interesting. They also got to see it kind of implemented and in context. So they got to see it on the trade show wall, T-shirts that NMRA board members were wearing, things like that. So it was much easier to kind of understand the brand and see how it's implemented and see it in the space that it was created for, which in large part are things like the Amherst show and TrainFest that are train shows, and where everything else is happening, again, where the branding firm did all this research and made sure that it was something that would be appropriate and fit in, but also stand out and also be this kind of vision beacon that John was talking about. And so the reason for rebranding is to express what is happening with the organization. There have been some negative responses, of course. One of those is being, so why are you rebranding? Why are you wasting your time doing that? There's so many other things to fix. Well, like John said, it's all part of the same thing. When you go to fix a problem, you don't just do this little thing over here and not make sure that this other thing is working, or it's a holistic view and a holistic approach to improving every bit of the NMRA, the organization, the community that's associated with it. And it's just this really large task that we have taken on in order to make the NMRA something, for the 21st century, for the 22nd century. We're preparing for the future here, and we're preparing to have a lot more members. But the negative feedback has been, very kind of normal in a branding release. The new identity has, sparked some kind of backlash because it's not the old logo, which is very typical. A lot of people have invested in the identity of the NMRA, and they like the NMRA, they like the looks, the logo, and everything. They like the tradition, and all those things are very important. And so there's been that. There's been some people who don't like the kind of modern look that it has. This was actually a very purposeful goal of this rebranding, was to show the modernization, was to show the streamlining, was to show the clarity with which we were bringing the approach to looking at the operations of the group, looking at the outreach and the community engagement and getting new members, and transparency is a huge thing with Gordy and everybody who's working on this project. Hence why we put up our laundry. I won't say dirty laundry because it's not really dirty, but we've put our laundry out for everybody to look at and say, hey, like, this is who we are. We're looking at every aspect of what we do, and here is a really tangible 298 pages of information that we're sharing with you, that is the foundation of how we were looking at rebranding and going about expressing who we are and who we want to be. So it's been an interesting experience. There have been a few detractors of the NMRA who, they just hate everything that we do because of some reason in the past. Some things that we can address and we're trying to address, some things that we'll never be able to fix because that happened 40 years ago, and we just can't do anything about it. We're sorry, but we can't do anything about it. And so there have been some detractors who just don't like anything we do, and that's not real helpful. But we've also gotten some very clear feedback. Some people who are not only invested in the hobby, but invested in the NMRA in particular, and in seeing it succeed. And they've been very clear with some helpful criticism. They've started to work with it, to implement it at the division level. I'm talking with a couple of different people over email about how to work things out, and why are we doing this and why are we doing that. And that process is really good because that helps us even strengthen the brand that we've already started through the implementation phase. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's having people look at the organization with fresh eyes. It's having people consider what we're doing, and it's displaying that we are changing, literally changing what we look like, what our vision is, and really setting us up to be able to take a holistic rethinking of things and be really smart about what we're doing and make things better. So overall, I would say there's a lot of support for it. And then, kind of the individual detractors that, some of it is very helpful, and some of it is just complaining, which is not so helpful.
And what did you say? EML? No, yeah, EML. Is that what you said? There was a acronym in there somewhere.
I think you said email.
Email, yeah.
Oh, is that what that was? Oh, that must
that's Lionel. That's something you do on a computer. There's a typewriter that's connected to the telephone lines.
Hey, Lionel, I think it's the Texas accent.
That's what I was going to say. Well, something we do east of the Mississippi is speak clearly.
We're too laid back and enjoying life in Texas to speak clearly or fast.
So now I was thinking, if we only had access to like a division superintendent that could throw in their 2 cents worth, but
wouldn't that be neat?
If we only had one of those.
Yeah. So Daniel, what division are you the superintendent of?
The Central Indiana Division.
Central Indiana, blah, blah, blah. Yeah.
Yep. It's kind of like Gary, Indiana, Gary. Yeah. The same sort of thing. Although Gary is not part of our division. That's the Michiana Division.
Well, of course.
Which, if you do a search for them, it is a small division, but they do some incredible work. Just before this tonight, our region had their general membership meeting, and the Michiana division hosted it, and then went on to do a clinic on Monon boxcars. They have all of their videos.
I was going to say,
you can search.
I was going to say,
we've talked about them before.
Yeah, the Michiana division has that incredible video library.
Yep, over 200 videos. They are awesome. But anyway, back to your actual question after that plug there for them. I like it. I've had some guys say, hey, that red on purple thing, that's kind of hard to read with my old eyes. So there's some good feedback that comes, that I've gotten from division folks. Others are like, hey, this is some interesting concepts. As a division superintendent, I'm excited about it. I look forward to working closer with my region and being able to trade some ideas and find things that work. I think it's a good thing.
And what region are you part of again?
The Midwest region.
Ah, yes. And so generally, like, have you gotten like kind of generally people are like, you haven't got a whole bunch of old guys going, I don't want to, blah, blah, blah. Like, is it generally pretty positive?
Yeah. I've had some guys that are like, I'm not jazzed about the logo. And it's just personal opinion. And you know what? As a person who enjoys more complex logos, it's not my favorite either. But I fully understand why it is the way it is. It scales beautifully as someone who has to deal with that sort of stuff on web work and all. It scales wonderfully. It looks good tiny as it does big, and with having to deal with small screens these days where you're displaying information like that, it's tricky. It's hard to have a complex logo and it look good. So I think it fits the bill well for that, and I think it'll serve the organization well. So some personal opinion stuff like that, but no real pushback of this is nuts or whatever. My division's generally pretty excited about it.
All right, cool. And Marcus, remember the time I talked to you about having Daniel on the podcast?
Yeah, once or twice we had that brief discussion.
Right, and you were trying to place the face, and I said, the guy that likes real complex logos.
Then that's exactly how I knew who you were talking about.
Exactly.
I've got a take about this that I wish I could sort of share with everybody in the world, and that'd be most of the people since they'd be listening here, right?
Exactly. Now you're getting it.
I'm on the branding committee, so I have seen this work developing through really, really rough ideas to first impressions to first drafts. And I can't speak, this is not my lane. This is really Riley's expertise as a designer, but I will share just as a personal sort of member from an individual member standpoint. FOTA presented us with 4 ideas at the beginning, and I didn't like any of them. The one that we ended up choosing is the one I liked the most, but I didn't really like it. It didn't really work for me right away. Maybe similar to Daniel, I thought maybe these kind of don't look like they're really saying anything to me. Anyway, it kind of grew on me a little bit over time. So I went through a phase where it was sort of like okay. Then I went through a phase where I was kind of like saying, yeah, I get it, and I think it has a lot of advantages. And today, I just think it is expletive awesome.
So I'm not to that stage yet. I'm at the prior one still.
All I'm suggesting is maybe it grows on you after a while, and particularly what really started making it work for me, and Riley can, I think, attest to this too, is when they started showing us ways that we could play with this, ways that we could, change the color in a season to do something different. Ways that we could make funny T-shirts. I was one of the early ones that said, I want this T-shirt that says 187 and that's scratched out, because I'm an N-scaler, right? And we just had lots and lots of fun with it. So that really has been a theme all along, which is like, it's a super serious organization with a really serious mission and the ability to kind of make fun of itself. Anyway, long story short, it's really grown on me, and I think it will grow on a lot of other people too.
Yeah, I think a logo, really the important thing is it catches your eye whether you like it or not. It's what's important. It's what's inside the document.
Right. And that's kind of why for me, the really main thing in here is, as Riley said, if this communicates kind of it's not the same old organization, there's something new here, look deeper, then it's done all the heavy lifting as far as I'm concerned. Because my fundamental premise and the way we talk about this is if you look at you look at two pictures. One picture is, imagine in your mind every single thing that the NMRA stands for, every single thing that it has done, every single thing that it has failed to do, the whole package and the whole experience, say over the last 20 years, everything. That's one picture. The second picture is a graph that shows our membership declining every single year for those 20 years. And my contention was those two pictures are linked. You cannot avoid that. Everything we have done, everything we have failed to do, everything we are, everything we aren't, have led to that result. And if you believe that way, like I do, then you must change.
I think I just had a really good thought that won't make much sense to anybody, but I think maybe if I could spit it out. This is because I'm looking at while you guys are talking, I'm going around the thing, and I end up here on the Michiana Division's homepage, and of course there's a picture on the homepage of two old guys, which seems to comprise a large segment of the NMRA membership. However, my friend Tim Warris famously said, they make new old guys every day. Right? And I'm thinking to myself as you guys are talking, I'm thinking, like, is it possible that the NMRA can grow the way you guys are envisioning? Because you've got guys like Derek, who in his mid-30s has yet to belong to the NMRA, but it will like, is your idea to try to attract younger people, or is it more to attract people who are already in the hobby, that when Derek's 50, he'll like, yeah, you know what, I'm going to join the NMRA. Like, did that even make any sense?
It does. I can speak to that a little bit. I think what we mostly believe, well, let's see. So there's sort of two ways to think about this, I think, and we sort of fall into a couple of camps. And I got to be honest and transparent. The NMRA has gotten in trouble around this issue in the past. So by and large, what I think most of us believe is that the experience that we have, this kind of shared experience, that we're really interested in the hobby when we're young. Then we go through a period where we are constrained and we can't spend as much time in it. And then we come back to it later. And you can kind of put the numbers on the ages on that. And so one of the camps and one of the theories is, yes, our customer is somebody at or near retirement, 50 years old. We've gotten in trouble in the past when we've leaned solely into that and said we didn't say on explicitly, but we kind of inadvertently communicated, and we're not interested in anybody else. Right. The other camp is the camp that kind of says, generally, is like, no, you got to really invest a lot of energy and effort in the really young people, in children and kids and adolescents, and get them interested in the hobby. Grow the hobby and you will grow your association. That's not untrue either. It's just historically been difficult for our association because it takes such a long time to convert that person into somebody that will join the organization.
Yeah, because you're going to have kids that are interested, of course, in the hobby, whether it's model trains or prototype trains.
Right.
But they're not going to necessarily automatically become, someday a light bulb may go off, but
right.
Not necessarily going to become a member of the NMRA, or we'll look at another organization that I think has similar issues with membership decline, is the National Railway Historical Society. I mean, you might love trains and be all interested in the history of trains and everything, but do you really want to join the NRHS? Why do you do that? So
Right.
you're not going to necessarily grab all those people.
Yeah.
And Lionel, I think if Lionel's argument was correct, and sorry to disagree with you on this, but I think if your argument was correct that there are enough old guys who are turning 50 or 60 every day to join the NMRA as a customer, then the NMRA should probably have had record membership over the last 20 years, because the baby boomers have been 60 to 80 years old, and that's the largest glut of old people in demographical history for the US, right? Then you can't have your membership halve when you have the most potential customers in your target age range. That's at odds. So it goes back to John's point that I think there's a fundamental mismatch between what the NMRA has offered and the available customer pool. So now, as the baby boomers are aging, it's almost like we've missed the boat converting those customers. Now we need to find customers who are younger in order to make the organization sustain itself.
And if you look at what the hobby manufacturers are doing right now, it provides a really good blueprint for what the NMRA can do. And I think we're taking inspiration from them. So if you look at Shane over at Scale Trains, they just bought Virtual Railfan, right?
Mm-hmm.
And why did they do that? Because that's where all the young kids are looking at trains. They're following these trains all over the country. They're rail fans first. They may not have room or money for a layout, for a model railroad, but they're interested in trains. And so that's a direct, pipeline of potential customers that he now, has brought into his family, and is able to promote, the things that make his business grow and everything like that. He also has, I think, 4 full-time social media people. Which, can you imagine, that, 30 years ago, right? That wasn't even a thing that somebody could do. And he's got 4 young guys, as do other manufacturers. Like Rapido has some great social media guys right now. And they are out there engaging the future model railroaders where they are, which is in prototype model railroading, which is online, which is, in TikTok and places like that. And that's something, that the NMRA is, following suit on and trying to learn from what they're doing and having great success.
Do you two guys find this just to be an overwhelming task sometimes? Riley, do you find I know you put I know both you guys have put a lot of heart and soul into this. Both of you have put a lot of heart and soul into this. And do you sometimes find it to be just it seems overwhelming to me. Mm-hmm. And I mean, all I do is I sit here and, just yammer into a microphone, and that can sometimes be overwhelming, keeping up to date with it. And yet, you guys, the task you have taken on here is oh my God, it's like, how could I ever thank you? How could people like me, lifelong NMRA guys, I know there's going to be a bunch of guys with me if that ever happened, turning the lights out, because there are a bunch of people like me that will belong to the NMRA regardless. Period. End of sentence. I'll always belong to the NMRA. And so you got those guys, but I don't get involved in the day-to-day operations of the thing because I'm just like, holy moly. And do you find it overwhelming, or?
It is. And it's something that I lament on a regular basis, that I don't have more time to spend to do all the things that I need to be done. It's and John can speak to this because John is as guilty as any of us that are working on this huge project. John is traveling across the country for his job. He and I both have day jobs, and they're day jobs that involve a lot of traveling, that involve a lot of overtime, that involve a lot of emotional commitment, a lot of headspace. When we go home at 5 o'clock, we don't stop thinking about work. But we start working on things for the NMRA, and it's something that John will take meetings as he's walking through an airport. This is the level of dedication of this group of people that are at National right now that Gordy has attracted, because we have seen that Gordy really wants to change things, and he wants to make this a Big Ten organization that serves the hobby, that makes the hobby better. and that increases the enjoyment, makes model railroading more fun for everybody. And I don't know about John, but I've gotten to the point in the past 2.5, 3 years. I can't remember how long I've been working on this, working for the NMRA doing things. But it's totally replaced my modeling. My layout hasn't changed much in several years. My travel is to the national conventions, to train shows. It's become my hobby, but it's a passion, and I think you can tell in John's voice when he talks about it. Like, this isn't this. We're not curing cancer or anything like that. I wish we were. I wish everybody were, but this is something that is important to us because we know how much fun model railroading can be, and we know how much an organization that is dedicated to helping people have more fun in the hobby could be if we just tried hard enough. And so there is that feeling where people are working, feverishly to improve things and to make this change, but we're volunteers. A lot of us have day jobs. There's other competing things, of course, but my biggest lament is that I don't have more time to spend on it because I see the potential and I see all the things that need to be done to reach the greatest potential of the organization.
That's good. Yeah. I think the other thing that part of what's overwhelming to me is, I guess a couple things. One is that we talk about all the time is we just always struggle in a volunteer organization to have enough hands on deck to get things done. We can come up with ideas, but executing those ideas is always challenging. And here I really have to credit Gordy kind of being transparent about we all fell into this trap. We had a really, really big kind of dream at the beginning. And we just struggled along for a couple of years of not being able to keep all the things moving forward. So the song of the last 6 months or so that he's been preaching, I think, really, really effectively is just get very laser focused on one or two things and make sure we move those along. So the vision has, a 10-year kind of look ahead at what we're trying to accomplish, but year by year, we're just going to have a work plan and sort of not allow ourselves to get distracted too much by that. I think that's super important. The other thing that kind of overwhelms me is it's been kind of wrapped up in the discussion we've had so far, which is in addition to you're trying to wrestle with, should we go after this age group or that age group, this kind of member or that kind of member, potential member. That's all changed too. And Lionel, you said a couple of times now about how you'll always be a member. So there was a really interesting piece of the survey we did a couple of years ago where we looked at by age category, why are you a member? And one thing you can see is that the nature of membership has changed a lot. So if you're in this age cohort that you and I are in, if you're a baby boomer, baby boomers tended to belong to things and then would express that, the reason being something along the lines of, because it's the right thing to do. That's kind of how we felt. That's why you're a member of NPR or something like that.
Right. Yeah.
Right. The younger age group tends to look at it much more transactionally. I will belong to things if the value proposition makes sense to me. Right. And that's not to be judgmental one way or the other. But in the middle of trying to change everything, we have to change all of that too, right? We can't appeal to every single age cohort and said, you should be a member of the NMRA because it's the right thing to do. So that's why the vision is so focused on member experience, on providing tangible value, particularly as goes to education. And then you sort of learn over the long haul. We feel like once you get in the tent, then you sort of learn the value of fellowship. But you got to sell something in the beginning that people want to buy. And that too has been a bit overwhelming because we're not the only, this is a big, huge sort of social norm and societal issue. we just have become a nation and a society that doesn't belong to things very much anymore, right? Other than sitting on the couch with a phone, right?
I saw a comment on some of the discussion that's been going on the last couple of weeks, and I forget where I saw it, but somebody said, Mike, it was a person who's, older and saying, well, my kids just don't join things anymore. They're just not a part of things anymore. They go and enjoy their hobby, but they don't join organizations.
Yeah, I saw that post. This is though, Marcus, this is part of what drives me is that this is, if you will, my version of curing cancer.
Yeah.
I think a lot of what we're doing in our society today is not right. And I think we will come to regret it. And I think teaching even a fraction of people that there's something super, super valuable about sacrificing a little of your own personal kind of space in favor of doing something as a community. And then the other thing that I like to say all the time is, trains is the thing that brings us together, but the real output of this, in my opinion, is not just making better modelers, but making better human beings.
I agree with that 100,000% because of my experience in 2025. I said a very offhanded comment about Lucy, the social media manager. I mean, I didn't mention her name, but I just said something about social media manager. And because I live in 2025, for a couple of 3 days, I was met by a firestorm of people saying all sorts of nasty things about me because I said that. However, at the end of the day, when I was able to sit back at it, I felt like I was fortunate to have that. Like you learn from your mistakes. The best way to learn is to make mistakes. Now, you hope that you don't hurt anybody while you're going along making a mistake. But because I live in 2025, and it's like what you said, John, it's like there's a lot to learn now, and we're on the verge of an opportunity. I see what you guys are doing. It's a new world. It's just a completely new world. 8 years ago, 9 years ago, 5 years ago, if I'd made that comment, there would have been no backlash. Now there's an opportunity for people to stand up, even though a lot of them are just keyboard warriors, and they said, they get carried away and say things. But I mean, it's such a great opportunity in today's world to learn from your mistakes. And you're right. Like if people don't correct this, it's going to get worse and worse and worse. And it is. It's like a noble cause to try to push humanity in the right direction. Like the last time I talked to Riley and Gordy said, you guys are trying to develop a culture of kindness. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that hit me square in the head, square in the forehead. Like, that's where we've lost our way, or that's
absolutely,
and it's
when you type onto your computer. My favorite comments about the branding were when somebody said something like, something like this is ridiculous. You guys should have hired an expert to do this. Something like that, right? The thing I finally had to turn off. There weren't that many, but it only takes a few to wind you up. But the thing I always want to say to people, these keyboard warriors, is if we were in my basement and you were looking at my modules, would you talk to me like that? Mm-hmm. Right? Because this is my art, and this project, whether it's the vision project or the branding project, this is a piece of art, if you will, that Riley and I have been involved with. It's not certainly far from perfect, but it's the work we put into it, and we don't mind criticism, in the same way that you would kind of get scored in an AP. You asked for it, now you're going to get the feedback.
Well, I think some of the criticism that was out there just didn't add up for me because, to your point, John, I think that you would never say that about somebody's railroad. So why are you saying it about a logo? The second is, I think it's like the Dunning-Kruger effect, where the less you know, the less subject matter expertise you have, the more you think your opinion, or the higher you estimate your skills. So a lot of people who have no marketing background and no art background, no branding background, having strong opinions about the quality of the work I thought was really interesting because, they're not necessarily qualified to judge. This is a great logo. This is a bad logo. They probably haven't read the vision document or listened to Riley's. But it's people who I was talking to an attorney for our business today, and he had a good line of, everybody is entitled to an opinion, but not all opinions are correct. And so I do think that there was a little bit of weirdness there where a lot of people were quick to judge. I think the last paradox goes back to something that Riley said on our last podcast, which was, the universal sort of feedback was that people want the NMRA to change. Mm-hmm. And so then how can we universally want, including me, I've been pretty outspoken about that. But then how can we all want the NMRA to change? And the NMRA does the work, does the research, changes, and then we criticize them for changing. And I think it's kind of, I don't know, a little silly that we all, or not we all, but a lot of people reacted negatively when, there were probably the same people complaining the NMRA never does anything, then criticize the NMRA for doing something. So I don't know, it bothered me a couple weeks ago when a lot of that was going on because I thought it wasn't well rooted.
Yeah, this happened. This is so frequent that I talk about it quite a bit in my work. And at some point in almost every engagement I'm working with an organization, I will make this comment. Everybody is in favor of change until we come to your office.
Right.
Wow.
Right. So I think that's kind of natural and normal. And like Riley said, by and large, the comments were really, really different, really, really positive. And, I bet almost everybody on the cast today knows this, at least tangentially, that probably the worst thing in the world to try to get a Democratic majority around be what a new logo looks like. It's like
it's worse than hurting
anybody who's ever done this learns that lesson. It's like, no, we're not gonna ask people what they think about this. So but I'll tell you, there was I don't know if this is too transparent, Riley, but I remember we had a call this summer and we had the publishers of the two big magazines on, and we showed them this story before anybody else had seen it.
The editors, yes.
Yes, the editors. I'm sorry, I said, the editors. And you got to feel like those are a couple of power users, right? They're gonna have a sense of the big picture, and they also know what it looks like to make something look good in space and all of that. And that was a super, super engaging conversation. So I don't know.
Yeah. Is it possible you guys could stick around for another hour? Because our podcasts are shorter now. Because we find that people will take it in better and get more out of it. And is it possible you guys could stick around and we could do a second hour? Because I have some questions.
I can. And I really wanted to. I was just going to jump in and say, I haven't really said what the vision is here. And
exactly. So usually the second hour we put on the paid channel. But I think what we'll do is we'll do a second hour. We'll keep it on the free channel because it's important for as many people to hear this as possible. And so somehow we'll figure out, what, for the second hour, for the Tuesday episode, we could have an hour with Daniel.
Sure. I have a lot of thoughts on this of what I've been hearing as a division superintendent.
Daniel, can I just pause you for a moment, interrupt you?
Yeah, sure can.
Do you understand the basic principles of an audio podcast?
Sometimes, though, knowing when to shut up and let the smart people talk is very helpful, and knowing the right time to interject your thoughts is key. And I've not hit that spot yet.
Okay. Is that like irritating a guy when he's about going to physical therapy when he doesn't appear to be in the mood for any advice about anything?
Yeah, it is. It's a lot like that. Sometimes when the need is important, whether it's a great timing otherwise or not, you inject. And other times you just sit back a little bit and collect and ponder your own thinking a little bit and, hear what you hear and then you kind of let go. So.
Yeah. So just so everybody understands what we're talking about, with our Patreon members, we have a Wednesday chat group, a virtual chat every Wednesday, and lots of people show up and we have a great time. And I think it was like the third week after I'd had my hip surgery, I showed up just to say hi to everybody. And it was, how you doing? Not that great. Well, let me tell you what you ought to do.
Dr. Daniel's in the house.
Yeah, and I'm like, do I look like I give everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
So this podcast is sponsored by White Rose Hobbies. That's whiterosehobbies.com. And do you know where they're located, Kelly?
Yeah, they're located in York, Pennsylvania.
What's
Downtown, right?
Yeah, downtown. Right downtown, right in the center. What's the address,
York?
Kelly?
I have no idea what the address
It's
is.
4401 West Market Street. Do you ever listen to the podcast?
But their name comes from the fact that York was known as the White Rose.
That's true. It was, something to do with white roses in York, Pennsylvania, which we're still not 100% clear on. Yeah, find out about that, will you?
Has nothing to do with nurseries.
No,
Yeah,
it has nothing to do with nurseries. Yeah, for Riley and John, I'm assuming you listen to all the podcasts and some of them twice. But if you've missed any of them, occasionally I'll say White Rose Nurseries because in the southern Ontario, Toronto area, there was a White Rose Nurseries for years and years that was very successful. And so I would constantly say, we're sponsored by White Rose Nurseries, which of course we're not. We're sponsored by White Rose Hobbies at 4401 West Market Street in York, Pennsylvania. Do you know what their zip code is, Kelly?
I have no idea.
Oh, come on.
How do you get this big?
My expertise is not in the addresses and phone numbers. Mine's expertise in viewer mail. I mean the email address.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, if that's your expertise, then give us out the email address.
Yes, if you want to reach us by the wonders of email, our email is modelerslife@gmail.com. That's modeler with one L, like NMRA logo, not two L's like NMRA e-bulletin.
Ooh.
Wow. That wasn't bad.
He was putting all of his focus on the email.
That felt like
That's why I haven't been talking for the last hour.
yeah. That felt like a fly ball to deep center, and the guy's going back. Is he going to get it or not?
No, he banged into the wall.
And if you missed that, if you go to our website, amodelerslife.com, and scroll down just a little bit, there's a widget in there where you can send an email, and we love to get emails, pro and con. We got this year. We got several con ones, and we for a stretch there, and but we love email, all of them, because we read them all. And what else do we need? Oh yeah, man! If you love this podcast, if you just can't wait to get more, for just a few cents a day, you can join our Patreon channel, and then every Tuesday, well, it's supposed to be every Tuesday, and it usually is every Tuesday. Out of the last 11 years, most of the time it's every Tuesday. 98% of the time, 99% of the time it's every Tuesday. Recently it hasn't been because my hip hurts. But we get them out every week. We get out our 2 podcasts every week. And then if you join the T-shirt level, then you're entered into the game that's sweeping the nation, sweeping the globe. Hey, dude, where's my shirt? Because at the $10 level, everybody gets a T-shirt every year and a bag of swag, and the guy that's in charge of sending out the T-shirts is useless. That's it. Have I covered everything, Marcus?
I think you've got it all.
All right. I think, well, you know what? We'll let John take us out of this one, and then Riley can take us out of the next one. Or I think Riley should take us out of this one because he's our most recent guest, and then John will know what he's supposed to do when in our next hour. Now, I can't
say Riley has some practice already, right?
Yeah,
I do.
And I can't promise that the second part of this will come the following week, but it will be shortly after. We're coming up to the busy time of year, the Christmas time of year, where everybody gets out their trains. So are you ready, Riley?
I am ready.
So remember, a Modeler's Life podcast is considered marginally adequate by 6 out of 10
expert logo designers.
It's another Lincoln Homer.
Yeah, there we go.
Nice.
There's hundreds of those on Facebook these days.
Yeah.
There are.
Yes. One on
Maybe
every
even
corner.
1,000.
Yeah.